Disguised owner overhears cashier's touching moment with a deaf customer. The next day, he did this. The faint chime of the store's bell broke the hum of the quiet afternoon. Ava, the cashier at Morris General Store, looked up from the counter. It was one of those days when the store seemed more like a resting place for time itself. The familiar shuffle of regulars had faded, replaced by a silence that carried a faint scent of freshly brewed coffee from the shop next door. Ava's life was as predictable as the clockwork mechanism of the register she manned daily. With her auburn hair tied back in a loose ponytail and her name badge glinting under the fluorescent lights, she was the face most customers recognized. But for Ava, the rhythm of scanning items and small talk with patrons blurred into one unbroken monotony. Today felt no different, or at least it didn't until she saw him. The man who entered the store looked out of place, as if he belonged to a different story entirely. Tall and broad-shouldered, his jacket bore the faint creases of long travels, and his boots carried traces of mud, suggesting a journey through unknown terrain. His eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the aisles with a peculiar intensity. But what stood out most wasn't his appearance. It was the small child beside him, clutching his hand. The boy couldn't have been more than 8 years old. His face, framed by curly hair, was marked with a quiet shyness. He stayed close to the man, who Ava assumed was his father, his gaze flickering nervously from shelf to shelf. Something about the boy's demeanor caught Ava's attention, but it wasn't until they approached the counter that she understood why. The man set a loaf of bread and a carton of milk on the counter and gave Ava a nod. The boy stayed silent, his eyes fixed on the floor. Ava greeted them with her usual warmth. "Good afternoon. How's your day going?" The man smiled faintly but didn't respond. Instead, he glanced at the boy and gently squeezed his shoulder. The boy looked up, and Ava noticed the flicker of fear in his eyes. Then the man gestured, not with words but with his hands. A series of fluid, deliberate movements passed between the two, and Ava realized he was using sign language. Her heart sank slightly as she understood the boy was deaf. Ava felt a pang of guilt for not recognizing it sooner. She watched as the man signed something encouraging to the boy, who nodded hesitantly and reached into his pocket to pull out a small piece of paper. He handed it to Ava with trembling fingers. Written in shaky handwriting were the words, "Can I have candy?" Ava's chest tightened. The boy's hesitancy, the man's silent encouragement, the unspoken bond between them. It was a language all its own. She felt an overwhelming urge to connect, to bridge the gap that silence had created. "Of course you can," Ava said softly, her voice instinctively gentle. She grabbed a candy bar from the rack and slid it across the counter. "Is this the one you like?" The boy's face lit up, but he didn't respond. Instead, he turned to the man, who signed something Ava couldn't understand. The boy nodded eagerly, and for the first time, a small smile broke across his face. It was a moment, a fleeting simple moment, but it stayed with Ava. She watched as the man paid for the items, his actions careful and deliberate. Before they left, the boy looked up at her and gave her a small wave. Ava waved back, her heart warmed by the silent exchange. But just as they were about to step out, something unexpected happened. The boy stopped in his tracks and turned back to the counter. He tugged at the man's sleeve, gesturing urgently. The man, clearly puzzled, knelt down to meet the boy's gaze. Another flurry of hand movements passed between them, and the man's expression softened. The boy approached Ava again, this time with more confidence. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a second note. Ava unfolded it and read the words, "Thank you for being kind." Ava's throat tightened. She looked up at the boy, her eyes meeting his, and smiled. "You're very welcome," she said, unsure if he could read her lips but hoping he could feel her sincerity. She held up the note and tapped her chest. "This means a lot to me." The boy's smile widened, and this time it wasn't shy. It was radiant. As the door closed behind them, Ava felt an unexpected warmth spread through her chest. It was a small act of kindness, a fleeting interaction, but it had left a mark on her. She couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the last she'd see of the boy and his mysterious guardian. What she didn't know was that someone else had been watching the entire exchange. Hidden in plain sight, A man with graying hair and a weathered face sat at a nearby table, sipping a cup of coffee. He wore a plain uniform, the kind you'd expect from a janitor, and his unassuming presence had gone unnoticed by most. But his sharp eyes missed nothing. As the boy and the man left the store, the janitor set down his coffee and leaned back in his chair, a faint smile tugging at his lips. There was something special about Ava, he thought, something rare. The janitor, however, wasn't who he seemed. Unbeknownst to Ava and the rest of the staff, he was the store's owner, disguising himself to observe his employees in their most unfiltered moments. What he had just witnessed convinced him that Ava might be the key to something much greater. The following day began like any other, with Ava arriving early to prepare the store for the day ahead. She tied her apron with practiced precision and began restocking items near the counter. Despite the mundane nature of her tasks, her thoughts wandered back to the boy and his guardian. There was something magnetic about their interaction the previous day. She couldn't forget the boy's shy smile or the heartfelt note he'd written. It wasn't every day that her small acts of kindness were acknowledged so profoundly. Ava caught herself glancing at the entrance more than usual, as though expecting, or perhaps hoping, that they would walk through the door again. From his vantage point, Mr. Jonathan Hayes, the undercover owner disguised as the janitor, watched Ava with quiet fascination. He had always believed that true character revealed itself in unguarded moments, and Ava's interaction with the boy had struck a chord with him. In the years he'd spent managing his store, few employees had stood out to him like this. Kindness like hers was rare, and he knew it couldn't be taught or trained. Jonathan's reasons for working undercover were deeply personal. Years ago, when the store had been just a small shop on a quiet street, he had prided himself on knowing every customer by name. But as the business expanded, his connection to the day-to-day operations diminished. Donning the guise of a janitor allowed him to observe his employees and customers in their most authentic moments. And yesterday he had seen something in Ava that rekindled his hope in the values he had built his business upon. By mid-morning, the store had started to fill with the usual flow of customers. Ava moved seamlessly between tasks, her demeanor a perfect blend of efficiency and warmth. It wasn't long before an older gentleman shuffled up to the counter, his weathered hands fumbling through his pockets. Jonathan paused his sweeping, sensing an opportunity to observe. "I'm so sorry," the man muttered, his voice tinged with embarrassment as he struggled to locate his wallet. "I could have sworn I had it." "Take your time," Ava said, her tone calm and reassuring. No rush at all. Her patience was genuine, and it seemed to ease the man's nerves. He continued searching, muttering apologies under his breath. Several minutes passed before he finally pulled the wallet from his coat pocket with a triumphant sigh. "Here it is," he said, offering Ava a sheepish smile. "No worries at all," Ava replied, handing him his receipt with a cheerful smile. "It happens to all of us. You have a great day now." The man left with a noticeable spring in his step, his earlier embarrassment forgotten. Jonathan nodded to himself, his suspicions confirmed. It wasn't just the big gestures that defined Ava. It was the small, everyday moments of compassion that set her apart. Later in the day, a delivery truck pulled up outside, and Ava stepped out to help unload boxes. The driver greeted her with a friendly wave, and she returned it enthusiastically. "How's your family doing, Rick?" she asked, grabbing a box from the truck. "They're good. Thanks for asking," Rick replied, his expression brightening. "Jenny started school last week. She's loving it so far." "That's great to hear," Ava said, her voice genuine. "She must be growing up so fast." Jonathan observed from inside the store, leaning slightly on his mop. Ava's ability to connect with people, whether they were customers or delivery drivers, was something he rarely saw. It wasn't just her job to interact. It was her nature to care. By the afternoon, the steady flow of customers had slowed, giving Ava a brief moment to breathe. She used the lull to rearrange the candy display near the counter, humming softly to herself. Jonathan pretended to busy himself near the shelves, though his attention remained fixed on her. He was assessing not just her performance but the intangible qualities she brought to the store. Qualities that couldn't be measured or recorded in employee reviews. His thoughts returned to the boy and his guardian. There had been something intriguing about them. A quiet strength in their bond that mirrored Ava's warmth. Jonathan felt a growing certainty that their paths would cross again, though he couldn't have predicted how soon that would happen. As if summoned by his thoughts, the bell above the entrance chimed, and there they were. The man and the boy walked in, their presence instantly shifting the atmosphere. Ava looked up, and her face lit up with genuine delight. "Hello again," she greeted them, her voice bright and welcoming. The boy, Leo, gave a small wave, his shyness still evident but tempered by familiarity. He stayed close to the man, who nodded politely at Ava. This time, they lingered longer, browsing the shelves with an air of ease that hadn't been there before. Jonathan watched intently, his curiosity piqued. He noticed how Ava's demeanor shifted when interacting with them. Her attention was fully focused, her body language open and inviting. She crouched slightly to meet Leo's eye level, making him feel seen and comfortable. "Did you find what you were looking for yesterday?" she asked gently, her eyes darting between Leo and his guardian. The man nodded, pulling out a small notepad from his jacket. He scribbled a quick message and handed it to Ava. "We wanted to thank you again. Leo couldn't stop talking about how kind you were." Ava's cheeks flushed with a mixture of pride and humility. "It was my pleasure," she said softly. "Leo's a wonderful kid." Leo peeked up at her, clutching his notebook tightly. After a moment's hesitation, he scribbled something and held it up. "I want to show you something." Ava's eyes widened with curiosity. "I'd love to see," she said, her tone full of encouragement. Leo opened his notebook and began flipping through the pages, revealing drawings of hand signs alongside written words. Ava leaned closer, marveling at his careful artistry. "Are these signs?" she asked. Leo nodded enthusiastically, his face lighting up. He pointed to one of the signs and demonstrated it with his hands. Ava mimicked his movements, her expression focused and determined. When she got it right, Leo beamed, his earlier shyness replaced by pride. Jonathan watched the exchange, his heart swelling with admiration. There was a purity in the connection between Ava and Leo, a mutual respect that transcended words. It was clear to him now that Ava wasn't just kind, she was transformative. Her ability to make others feel valued was a gift, one that had the power to ripple far beyond the walls of the store. As the man and Leo prepared to leave, the boy turned back one last time and waved at Ava, his smile radiant. Ava waved back, her chest tight with emotion. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, a reminder of why she loved working at the store. Jonathan, still leaning on his mop, made a silent decision. He didn't know how or when, but he was determined to learn more about Ava and the story behind Leo and his guardian. Something about their connection felt important, like a thread waiting to be woven into a larger tapestry. For now, he remained in the background, content to observe, but deep down, he knew that the events unfolding in his small store were the beginning of something extraordinary. The days following Leo's second visit were anything but ordinary. Ava found herself reflecting on their interactions, the quiet yet profound moments she shared with him and his guardian. It was a strange feeling, this lingering connection with people she hardly knew. The boy's drawings, his eager smile, and his clear determination to bridge the gap between their worlds stayed with her. She felt a sense of fulfillment that she couldn't quite explain, like she was meant to be a part of something bigger. Meanwhile, Jonathan Hayes continued his undercover observations. The moment he witnessed between Ava and Leo had left a deep impression on him. There was something almost magnetic about the way Ava connected with others. It wasn't just her warmth or patience. It was her ability to see people as they truly were. He had seen countless employees over the years, but few had this rare gift. And the boy Leo seemed equally special. Jonathan couldn't shake the feeling that their paths crossing wasn't a coincidence.
On a quiet Wednesday afternoon, the store's usual rhythm was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. A woman entered, her heels clicking against the tiled floor with deliberate precision. Her appearance was sharp, from her tailored coat to the stylish scarf draped around her neck. She carried an air of authority that immediately caught Ava's attention. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice firm but polite. "I'm looking for the manager." Ava straightened slightly, taken aback. That would be Mr. Peterson. He's not here today. Can I help you with something? The woman hesitated for a moment, then smiled faintly. Perhaps I'm CLA Sutton, she said, handing Ava a business card. I work for a non-profit organization that supports children with disabilities. I believe one of our volunteers may have visited your store recently, a boy named Leo. Ava's eyes widened in recognition. Yes, Leo's been here a couple of times. He's such a sweet kid. CLA's smile softened. I thought so. His guardian, James, mentioned this place when I saw him yesterday. He said Leo had a wonderful experience here, thanks to a young woman at the counter. Ava felt her cheeks flush. Oh, it was nothing. Leo's such a bright boy. I just wanted to make him feel welcome. It wasn't nothing, CLA said firmly. You made an impression on him, and that's not easy. Leo's been through a lot. He doesn't open up to people easily. The weight of those words settled over Ava. She wanted to ask what CLA meant, but something in the woman's tone suggested it wasn't her place to pry. Instead, Ava asked, Is there something I can do for him? CLA tilted her head thoughtfully. Actually, yes. Leo has been working on a small project, a series of drawings about his experiences. He wanted to include something about this store and about you specifically. Would you be open to meeting with him again, perhaps outside of work? Ava blinked, surprised by the request. She hesitated, unsure if this was something she should agree to, but then she remembered the boy's radiant smile and the way his eyes lit up when he showed her his notebook. I'd be happy to, she said finally. Whatever helps Leo. CLA's smile returned. Thank you, Ava. I'll let James know. He'll be thrilled. As CLA left the store, Jonathan watched the interaction from his usual corner, his curiosity growing. He hadn't heard the full conversation, but he caught enough to know that Leo's story was more complex than it seemed. The woman's polished demeanor and mention of a non-profit hinted at something deeper. He decided to keep an eye on this development. Quietly, of course. 2 days later, Leo and James returned to the store, but this time they weren't alone. CLA accompanied them, carrying a small folder in her hand. Ava greeted them warmly, her excitement visible. Hi, Leo, Ava said, her voice bright. It's great to see you again. Leo waved shyly, his notebook clutched in his hands. James smiled and gave Ava a polite nod while CLA stepped forward. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, CLA said. Leo's been working hard on something he wanted to share with you. Leo looked up at Ava, his eyes brimming with both excitement and nervousness. He opened his notebook and flipped to a page filled with colorful drawings. One of them depicted Ava behind the counter, smiling as she handed him a candy bar. Above her head, Leo had drawn a glowing sun, its rays extending outward. Oh, Leo, Ava said softly, her heart swelling. This is beautiful. Leo beamed, his hands moving in excited gestures. James quickly interpreted. He says you made him feel happy and safe, like the sun. Ava's throat tightened. She crouched down to meet Leo's eye level. That means so much to me, Leo. Thank you for sharing this. CLA stepped in, handing Ava the folder she had been carrying. Leo's drawings are part of a larger project we're working on, a collection of stories and artwork from children with disabilities. We're hoping to publish it to raise awareness and funds for our programs. Leo insisted that your story had to be included. Ava opened the folder and saw several of Leo's drawings, each accompanied by a short explanation. One of them described the candy bar incident, written in James's neat handwriting. Another detailed how Ava had mimicked Leo's sign language, an act that had made him feel understood. Ava felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know what to say, she murmured. This is incredible. Say you'll be part of it, CLA said gently. We'd like to include your perspective as well, a few words about your experience with Leo. It would mean a lot. Ava nodded without hesitation. Of course. Anything I can do to help. As they continued to discuss the project, Jonathan observed from his usual spot, his mind racing. He had always believed in the power of small acts of kindness, but this was something else entirely. For now, he decided to let things play out, but deep down, he knew that this was only the beginning. Whatever lay ahead, he was determined to support Ava and Leo in whatever way he could. The store was bustling on a brisk Friday morning when Ava arrived. The rush of customers was a welcome distraction as she tried to process the whirlwind events of the past few days. The project CLA had introduced, Leo's heartfelt drawings, and the uncanny sense of connection she felt with the boy. It was all a lot to take in. Still, Ava felt an undeniable excitement bubbling under the surface. Her life, once filled with predictable monotony, had started to take an unexpected and meaningful turn. By noon, Ava noticed a subtle change in the store's energy. It wasn't something overt, but rather a shift in the atmosphere. As she scanned items for a steady stream of customers, her attention was drawn to a familiar figure lingering near the canned goods aisle. It was James. He was alone this time, his usual calm demeanor replaced by something more guarded. When James noticed Ava glance his way, he gave her a small nod and approached the counter. His notebook was absent, and his hands remained by his sides. No signing, no gestures. This was unusual, and it didn't go unnoticed by Ava. "Hi, James," she greeted him warmly. "Where's Leo today?" James hesitated, his expression flickering with something Ava couldn't quite read. Finally, he pulled out a folded piece of paper from his pocket and slid it across the counter. Ava unfolded it to find a message written in the same neat handwriting she'd seen before. "Leo isn't feeling well today, but he insisted I come by. He wanted me to give you this." Beneath the message was a simple drawing, a small sunflower, its petals radiating outward like rays of light. In the center, Leo had written, "Ava, you are my sunflower." Ava's heart swelled, but it was tempered by concern. "Is he okay?" she asked, her voice filled with genuine worry. James nodded but didn't elaborate. Instead, he gestured toward the paper as if to say this is enough for now. Ava wanted to press further, but something in his eyes told her to let it go. After James left, Ava couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She stared at the drawing for a long moment, her thoughts racing. What was going on with Leo? Why had James seemed so distant? Meanwhile, from his usual spot near the back of the store, Jonathan observed the exchange with quiet intensity. He had been discreetly keeping tabs on Ava's interactions with James and Leo, trying to piece together the puzzle of their story. The sunflower drawing caught his eye, and he noticed Ava's reaction, a mix of joy and unease. Jonathan made a mental note to follow up on this. He wasn't one to meddle unnecessarily, but his instincts told him that there was more to this situation than met the eye. The rest of the day passed uneventfully, but Ava's thoughts remained preoccupied. When her shift ended, she found herself lingering in the store longer than usual, her gaze drifting toward the entrance as if expecting James or Leo to walk through the door. They didn't. The next morning, Ava arrived at work to find CLA waiting for her near the counter, dressed in her usual polished attire. CLA's expression was calm but serious. "Ava," she began, "I hope I'm not interrupting, but I wanted to speak with you about something." "Of course," Ava said, her curiosity piqued. "What's on your mind?" CLA glanced around, ensuring they had a bit of privacy before continuing. "I wanted to thank you again for agreeing to be part of the project. Leo talks about you constantly. It's clear you've made a significant impact on him. But there's something you should know about his situation." Ava's stomach tightened. "Is everything okay?" CLA sighed. "Leo has had a difficult life. His parents passed away in a car accident when he was very young, and James, his uncle, stepped in to raise him. They're incredibly close, but it hasn't been easy. James has struggled to balance work, caregiving, and supporting Leo's needs. That's why he volunteers with our organization. It gives Leo a sense of community and belonging." Ava felt a pang of sadness as she listened. "I had no idea," she said softly. "They seem like such a strong team." "They are," CLA agreed. "But lately, James has been under a lot of pressure. He doesn't like to ask for help, but it's clear he's reaching his limit. That's why your kindness means so much. It's a small reminder that they're not alone." Ava nodded, her resolve strengthening. "I want to help in any way I can." CLA's expression brightened. "I was hoping you'd say that. There's an event coming up, a fundraiser for the non-profit. Leo will be showcasing his drawings, and we'd love for you to be there. It would mean the world to him." "I'll be there," Ava said without hesitation. "Just tell me when and where." CLA smiled. "Thank you, Ava. I'll send you the details." As the fundraiser approached, Ava found herself feeling both excited and nervous. She spent her evenings researching sign language, determined to learn enough to communicate with Leo more meaningfully. She practiced in front of the mirror, her hands fumbling through the motions, but her determination never wavered. When the day of the event finally arrived, Ava walked into the community center where the fundraiser was being held. The room was filled with colorful artwork, each piece created by a child from the non-profit. Tables were set up with displays of crafts and baked goods, and a small stage had been erected for the presentations. Ava spotted Leo and James near the front of the room. Leo's face lit up when he saw her, and he waved enthusiastically. Ava waved back, her heart swelling with affection. "Hi, Leo," she said as she approached. "Your artwork looks amazing." Leo grinned and began signing excitedly. Ava recognized a few of the signs: thank you, happy, and friend. She responded with the signs she had learned, and Leo's eyes widened in delight. James watched the exchange with a soft smile. "He's been looking forward to this all week," he said, his voice tinged with gratitude. "It's an honor to be here," Ava replied. "Leo's incredible. He's taught me so much without even realizing it." As the evening unfolded, Ava felt a deep sense of belonging. She met other children from the non-profit, each with their own story and unique talents, but it was Leo's drawings that stole the show. His sunflower piece, inspired by Ava, became the centerpiece of the fundraiser, drawing admiration from everyone in attendance. By the end of the night, Ava realized that her connection with Leo and James was more than just a chance encounter. It was the start of something meaningful and transformative. And though she couldn't predict what lay ahead, she knew one thing for certain: she was exactly where she was meant to be. The fundraiser had been a resounding success, but for Ava and the rest of the team, it was only the beginning. The energy and hope generated by the event sparked an idea that Jonathan couldn't shake: a way to make a permanent impact on families like Leo and James. That day, Jonathan decided it was time to fully step into his role, not as the unassuming janitor, but as the person who had the means to make a real difference. Later that day, Jonathan gathered Ava, Claire, and James in the back room of the store. Unlike his usual low-profile demeanor, Jonathan arrived wearing a sharp blazer, exuding an air of authority that caught everyone off guard. As the group settled into their seats, Jonathan cleared his throat, his expression serious yet warm. "Before we begin," he started, his voice steady, "there's something I need to say." Ava and James exchanged puzzled glances while Claire tilted her head in quiet curiosity. Jonathan took a deep breath, the weight of the moment evident. "I'm not just the janitor here," he said, his tone calm but commanding. "I'm the owner of the store." The room went silent. Ava's eyes widened, her mouth slightly open in shock. James furrowed his brow, his disbelief evident. Claire, ever composed, gave a knowing smile but remained silent. "You?" Ava finally managed, her voice a mix of astonishment and confusion. "But all this time, you've been the janitor?" Jonathan finished with a small smile. "Yes, I have. It's my way of staying connected to what really matters: this store, the people who work here, and the community we serve. Sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that when you're sitting in an office." "I've always believed that understanding comes from being in the thick of things," Jonathan continued. "Ava, your interaction with Leo rekindled my hope in the values I built my business upon." Ava leaned back, her mind racing. "So all this time, you've been watching us?" "Observing," Jonathan corrected gently, not to judge or micromanage, but to learn. "And what I've learned is that this store's heart lies in the people who bring it to life every day. People like you, Ava." Ava's face reddened slightly, unsure how to respond. James crossed his arms, still skeptical. "Why tell us now?" he asked, his voice cautious. Jonathan leaned forward, resting his hands on the table. "Because I want to build something bigger than this store. The fundraiser was incredible, but it's only the start. We need to create something lasting, something that can continue to support families like yours, James." He glanced around the room, making eye contact with each of them. "That's why I'm proposing the launch of a community initiative right here in the store. We'll call it Sunflower Hearts. It'll be a program designed to provide ongoing support for families in need, financial assistance, mentorship, resources, whatever they require." Ava's eyes lit up, her astonishment shifting to excitement. "Sunflower Hearts?" she repeated softly, the words resonating with her like Leo's drawing. "Exactly," Jonathan nodded. That drawing symbolizes everything this program should stand for: hope, kindness, and connection. James, still trying to process the revelation, leaned forward. And how do you plan to make it work? Jonathan's smile broadened, his confidence unwavering. We'll use the store as the foundation. A portion of our profits will fund the program. We'll partner with local businesses and non-profits like Claire's organization to expand our reach. We'll host regular events, art exhibits, community dinners, anything that brings people together. CLA, who had remained quiet until now, spoke up, her voice tinged with admiration. It's ambitious, but I think it could work. You already have the trust of this community, Jonathan. That's a huge advantage. Jonathan turned to Ava. And I want you to lead this. You've already proven that you're the heart of this store. Your kindness and empathy are exactly what this program needs. Ava blinked, caught off guard. Me? I don't know if I'm qualified for something like this. You are, Jonathan interrupted, his tone firm but encouraging. You've shown time and time again that you care deeply about people. That's the most important qualification there is. Ava hesitated, the weight of the opportunity settling over her. Then she thought of Leo, his shy smile, his sunflower drawing, and the joy she had felt watching him thrive. If she could help create something that would make a difference in his life and the lives of others like him, how could she say no? Okay, she said, her voice steady. I'm in. Over the next few weeks, the team worked tirelessly to bring Sunflower Hearts to life. Ava took charge of organizing the program's first initiatives, guided by Claire's expertise and Jonathan's unwavering support. James volunteered his time, sharing insights from his experience raising Leo and helping shape the program's goals. Word of the initiative spread quickly, and the community rallied behind it. Local artists donated pieces for an upcoming art auction, while restaurants offered to cater a launch event for free. Even customers who visited the store began contributing, some by donating money, others by volunteering their time. Leo was a constant presence during the planning process, his excitement infectious. He spent hours creating new drawings for the program, each one brighter and more vibrant than the last. During her breaks, Ava often sat with him, practicing new signs and marveling at his creativity. The day of the Sunflower Hearts launch arrived with the kind of energy that made the community come alive. The store had been transformed into a vibrant celebration of hope and unity. Tables lined with artwork, photographs, and stories from families like Leo's filled the space, while the aroma of freshly baked goods wafted through the air. Jonathan stood near the entrance, greeting guests with a mixture of pride and humility. As much as he had envisioned this moment, seeing it come to life exceeded every expectation. He spotted Ava near the main display, talking animatedly with a group of visitors. Her confidence and passion were unmistakable, and Jonathan couldn't help but feel that he had made the right choice. The highlight of the evening was James's speech. Hesitant at first, he eventually agreed to share his story. Standing on a small stage, he spoke about the challenges of raising Leo and the joy that made it all worthwhile. I never thought I'd find a community like this, James said, his voice steady but emotional. You've given me and Leo more than just support, you've given us hope. Sunflower Hearts isn't just a program, it's a lifeline. And for that, I can't thank you enough. The crowd erupted in applause, and Jonathan glanced at Ava, who was wiping tears from her eyes. She caught his gaze and smiled, a silent acknowledgement of what they had built together. As the evening wound down, Jonathan found himself standing beside Ava, watching as Leo proudly showed his drawings to a group of children. You did an amazing job, Jonathan said, his voice warm. Ava shook her head. We all did. This wouldn't have happened without you, Jonathan. He smiled. Maybe not, but it also wouldn't have happened without you. In that moment, surrounded by the laughter and light of the community they had come to know and care for, Jonathan knew he had made the right decision, not just in promoting Ava, but in choosing to lead with his heart. The story of Sunflower Hearts didn't end that night. It continued to grow, touching lives and reminding everyone that kindness, no matter how small, could make the world a brighter place. For Jonathan, Ava, and the entire community, it was a testament to the power of compassion and the simple truth that together, they could achieve extraordinary things. A week after the launch of Sunflower Hearts, the energy of the event still lingered in the store. Customers spoke about the initiative with enthusiasm, local businesses displayed posters promoting the program, and donations continued to pour in. The ripple effect was undeniable. What had started as a simple fundraiser had grown into something transformative for Jonathan, Ava, and the entire community. It was a reminder of the power of compassion and the unexpected ways it could unite people. Jonathan arrived at the store early that morning, his mind buzzing with ideas. The success of Sunflower Hearts was only the beginning, and he was determined to keep the momentum going. But as he walked through the aisles, greeting the staff, he couldn't ignore the subtle tension on Ava's face. She greeted customers with her usual warmth, but Jonathan's trained eye caught the slight sag in her shoulders and the weariness in her smile. He approached her at the counter during a lull in the morning rush. "Ava," he said, his tone gentle, "you've been carrying a lot lately. How are you holding up?" Ava looked up, surprised by the question. "Oh, I'm fine," she said quickly, though her voice betrayed her exhaustion. "It's just been a busy few weeks, but it's worth it." Jonathan crossed his arms and leaned against the counter, giving her a knowing look. "You don't have to carry it all alone. You've done more than enough already." Ava hesitated, then sighed. "I guess I've just been feeling a little overwhelmed. There's so much to do, and I don't want to let anyone down." Jonathan smiled. "You haven't let anyone down, Ava. If anything, you've inspired people. That's not something you see every day." Ava gave a small, grateful smile but didn't respond. Jonathan decided it was time to put the plan he had been considering into action. That afternoon, he called a meeting with the staff. Everyone gathered in the back room, curious about the impromptu announcement. Jonathan stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding yet approachable. "First of all," he began, "I want to thank each of you for your hard work and dedication, especially over the past few weeks. The success of Sunflower Hearts wouldn't have been possible without you." He paused, letting the gratitude sink in before continuing. "But there's one person who's gone above and beyond, not just during the fundraiser, but in everything she does. Someone who embodies what this store is all about: kindness, compassion, and community." Jonathan turned to Ava, who was sitting near the end of the table, her eyes wide with surprise. "Ava," he said, "your hard work and dedication haven't gone unnoticed. You've been the heart of this store, and I can't think of anyone better suited to take on more responsibility." The room fell silent as Jonathan smiled. "That's why I'm promoting you to manager." Ava blinked, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to process the words. "Me? Manager?" Jonathan nodded. "You've earned it. Your leadership during the fundraiser, your connection with customers, your ability to inspire the people around you, it's exactly what we need in a leader." The room erupted into applause, and Ava felt her cheeks flush. She glanced around at her coworkers, all of whom were smiling and cheering for her. "I don't know what to say," she murmured. Jonathan chuckled. "Say yes." Ava laughed, the sound light and genuine. "Yes. Absolutely yes. Thank you so much." The weeks following her promotion were a whirlwind of activity. As manager, Ava took on new responsibilities with enthusiasm, but she never lost sight of the qualities that had earned her the role in the first place. She worked closely with Jonathan to expand Sunflower Hearts, organizing new initiatives that brought even more support to families in need. One of their first projects was a scholarship fund for local children, inspired by Leo's creativity and determination. Jonathan contributed the initial funding, and the community quickly rallied behind the idea. Within a month, they had raised enough money to send several children to summer camps and after-school programs. Leo was among the first recipients of the scholarship. When Ava told him the news, he grinned so wide it seemed his face might split in two. "Thank you," he signed repeatedly, his joy contagious. Jonathan, meanwhile, found himself energized by the transformation of his store. For years, he had focused on the day-to-day operations, ensuring the business thrived. But now he realized that his true purpose went beyond profits. Seeing the impact of Sunflower Hearts and the way the community had embraced the initiative filled him with a sense of fulfillment he hadn't felt in years. One evening, after the store had closed, Jonathan and Ava sat in the back room reviewing the latest plans for the program. The soft hum of the fluorescent lights filled the space as they sifted through paperwork and exchanged ideas. "You know," Jonathan said, leaning back in his chair, "I wasn't sure where all of this would lead when it started, but now seeing how much it's grown, I can't imagine this store without Sunflower Hearts." Ava nodded. "It's changed everything, for the store, for the community, and for me." Jonathan smiled. Watching you step into this role has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever experienced. Ava met his gaze, her expression sincere. None of this would have happened without you, Jonathan. You saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. I'll never forget that. Jonathan chuckled softly. Sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in you. And sometimes it takes a sunflower. Months later, as the store celebrated the first anniversary of Sunflower Hearts, the community came together once again. Families shared stories of how the program had touched their lives. Children displayed artwork inspired by Leo's sunflowers, and laughter filled the air. Jonathan stood at the edge of the room, taking it all in. He watched as Ava mingled with guests, her confidence shining as brightly as the lights strung across the room. She had grown into her role as manager seamlessly, and the impact she had made was undeniable. As Leo ran up to Ava, holding a new drawing to show her, Jonathan felt a deep sense of pride. He had always believed in the power of small acts of kindness, but seeing it ripple through the community in such profound ways was beyond anything he had imagined. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth and joy of the people he had come to know and care for, Jonathan knew he had made the right decision, not just in promoting Ava, but in choosing to lead with his heart. The story of Sunflower Hearts didn't end that night. It continued to grow, touching lives and reminding everyone that kindness, no matter how small, could make the world a brighter place. For Jonathan, Ava, and the entire community, it was a testament to the power of compassion and the simple truth that together, they could achieve extraordinary things.